Well, I've just finished watching today's Thomas Sheridan video, and as usual, it's brilliant. And I suppose I should analyze why I enjoy his videos so much. I enjoy the irreverence, I enjoy the kind of stream of consciousness that he comes out with. So, his video of yesterday talking about pandemonic got interrupted. It reminded me, I don't know what interrupted him. I assumed that it was important, so I'm not going to in any way be flippant about it, but it reminded me of when my mother comes in on me when I'm trying to do something. The look in his face and tone of my voice was totally familiar, or his voice was totally familiar. So I empathise. But he did a great video today. He gave me a shout out. Thank you. Thank you. I want to say this to everybody. I want to say this next remark most seriously. We're winning this. All right? If in doubt, think of what I just said a moment ago. We're winning this. Do not imagine that the psychopaths will ever concede that. Do not imagine that they will concede that up to their dying gasp. But we're winning this. Thomas talks about the Gardaí. Yeah, I agree with him. If you look at the Gardaí, because I've been up against them in court myself, and I've won on a number of occasions, and I've seen how it goes. So, for example, in 2015, I got acquitted of a criminal prosecution and I put up my own defence. I didn't do any free men in the land stuff, but I played it by the rules. You must, when you deal with Gardaí in a day-to-day, for your own interest, when you deal with Gardaí on a day-to-day basis, be cogent, be clear and concise, and be respectful. They do not like comedians. Very few police forces do, but I can assure you that the Gardaí don't. And they don't particularly like, or they particularly don't like people who are telling them the law. The Gardaí, yes, they arose after the Civil War in this state. In fact, the Gardaí are the legacy of two police forces that existed in the Irish Free State before 1922. The RIC, the Royal Irish Constabulary, and the DMP, the Dublin Metropolitan Police. They were amalgamated and they were given a new title. That now, here we heard the freetards all saying, oh, they don't exist, it's a limited company. No, the Gardaí have power over you, but they are the successor of those two organisations, the RIC, Royal Irish Constabulary, which then in Northern Ireland became the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and the Dublin Metropolitan Police. They were amalgamated and An Garda Síochána was created. Thomas is right to say there's only one Garda force in this state. I think that's for the best. We don't need disparate police forces. No thanks. You must remember something. The Gardaí will tell you this. They don't make the laws. They have to enforce them. Always remember that. So it's that video of Gemma giving socks to a Garda sergeant on the quays when she and John were heading into the forecourts. And it was totally, it was nonsense. The guard was entitled to stop you and ask you because the laws have been enacted. And the presumption of constitutionality is such that the law is constitutional until you can get it quashed. Here's something coming. We are now living in a tyrannical time in this country. The tyranny is done psychologically, and the most effective tyranny of all, as analysed by Aldous Huxley, is the tyranny that people consent to and ask for. It doesn't mean we're not winning, it means that this is what we're dealing with. So, I've digressed slightly. I think I've rambled a bit there, but we're dealing with a tyranny here, and it's all very well for people to say, well, there's a constitution. There are constitutional protections. There are, but what do you do when you've psychopaths in? Think of Simon Harris or Leo Varadkar or those ones, because their attitude is take your constitution and you know where you can stick it. That actually is their attitude. And Micheál Martin, that is their attitude. That really is their attitude. They have trampled in the past year over very long established constitutional precedents in this country, and their attitude to it is, well, what you going to do about it? Tracy O'Mahony answered that because she's now taking a constitutional challenge. She's taking it by plenary means, which is the right way to do it. Maybe, I don't know, she actually read the rulings in relation to O'Doherty and Waters, because as I said to you before, those rulings in relation to O'Doherty and Waters, nothing wrong with them. People can add a fictional slant to them if they want, but they are legally sound. So Tracy O'Mahony is now bringing a constitutional challenge, and that's going to be interesting to watch. There's going to be lots of other litigation as well. It's going to be an avalanche of litigation over this. But like people say, but would you have thought that they would have maybe anticipated this? No, they're psychopaths. They don't anticipate. They live in the moment. They live in the moment. So who is your enemy? Your enemy isn't the guards. Don't treat them that way. Be respectful to them. Don't be a comedian. Don't be smart with them. And don't lecture them on the law or coronavirus. A closed mouth catches no flies, you know? What do you do? So who's our enemy here? Well, it's easy. Our enemy is the mainstream media. I've been banging on about that, and different people have disagreed with me. Oh, we should go on protests, we should do this. Yeah, right. The first target has to be the mainstream media, because they have changed the whole narrative here. They are the ones that have the control psychically. They have the imagination, if you like, of still a majority of people in this country. They could have asked questions. They could have made it awkward last year. They chose not to. They're your enemy. I said that in 2019 when I noticed that RTE News was telling lies to support Varadkar. Not just omission, but lies. I've gone on about that many, many times before. I don't need to rehash that one. But, you know, getting back to the guards, getting back to not wearing a mask. I haven't worn a mask once. Not once. And on one occasion, some individual called the Gardaí on me, and they came to the shops, and I dealt with them. I actually was acquainted with the two Gardaí anyway, so they knew me. They know I'm not trouble. And they were very unimpressed with this person wasting their time, where the shop management had previously told this busybody that I had permission to be there without a mask. So, plot spoiler, nothing happened to me. Nothing happened to me. Yeah. Thomas talks about something else. You have got to stop calling politicians by their first name. He's right. There's a politician in my area. He was a county councillor. He's now a TD. He attended a planning meeting that I organised in 2017, and from the rooftops I called him a muppet, and everybody told me I was the worst in the world and I was this and that. That TD is now campaigning for two things. He's campaigning for a development in our area, 15% of which will be given to illegal immigrants. You know, being ahead of your time is a lonely place. Being ahead of your time is a lonely place. There was a thing on Niall Boylan yesterday. Whether Niall Boylan is controlled opposition or not, he comes out with good stuff. Okay, he may be controlled opposition, but if the debate is happening, join it. If it's a valid debate, join it. They may be controlled or not. You should still get involved. Songsa has bought a house in is in the process of buying a house in a private estate, but is dismayed to find out that 15% of the houses in the estate are going to be going to local authority tenants. Is he being a snob? No, I wrote he's looking after his own interests, because everybody else is looking after their own interests now. Civic mindedness died in this country 25 years ago, if it even existed. My parents grew up in social housing. My father was born in the buildings in Cuff Street, and he and my mother moved to one of the first corporation estates in Ireland in Kimmage. That was a corporation estate. It wasn't mixed. And I do believe that there's a psychopathic thing with that mixed thing. What it's to do is to pit people against one another. So you have this man who's trying to get a mortgage and buy a house, and then he discovers that other people are getting in there renting from the local authority at a knockdown rate. Of course he's going to be resentful. Do you not think it's deliberate? You not think it's deliberate? Is that going to affect all the people living in the mansions in Dalkey and Howth? No, it's not. That's to affect the middle class and to create resentment and foment resentment. Have you noticed how many of these wokies actually live in the country in cottages? Figure that one out. Think about that. How many of these wokies who are telling us all about integration and all this, they don't integrate, do they? Many of the others who are going on about integration live in mansions in Dalkey. So, you know, it's the middle class. It's the middle class who are being knackered here. It's the middle class who are who are the suckers in all of this one. But they voted for Fine Gael and they watch RTE and read the Irish Times. So it's up to, over to them. If we go back to 1776, the US Revolution came from something. It came from a realization that the politicians in London who were governing the 13 American colonies that would become the US, the people in the colonial America realized that the people making the decisions were their enemies. And you must also be realistic and realize that the situation that eventually led to the creation of the United States, the Republic of the United States, precipitated over 20 to 25 years. It actually began in 1720 with the economic collapse of the South Sea Bubble. The The Kingdom of Great Britain, which had been formed in 1707 from the Union of England and Wales with Scotland, suddenly found itself bankrupt, so it started it started fleecing the American colonies. And they said, well, we want representation. They weren't given MPs in the Commons. They had colonial governors. London wouldn't give it to them, so eventually the situation reached the revolutionary stage, and they broke from Britain that way. That took a long time to come. It was primarily economic, because they didn't want to have to pay, while at the same time getting nothing back for it. This is the same as the person who's paying taxes on a mortgage on a home in a private estate, and then he discovers that others are getting houses at a knockdown rental. And when people rent houses, they've less respect for them, usually. I'm generalising. I know that's a generalisation, but that's it. The people who formed the United States of America weren't interested in a democracy. They were interested in a republic. This is relevant to us here today in Ireland because we have a tyrannical government that is trampling on our constitution and trampling on our rights. We have a republic here in name, but the likes of Tracy O'Mahony who are taking it on are enforcing that by saying, no, there has to be some boundary here. Will I litigate? Yes, I'll litigate when they trample on my toes. Have they? No. Would it be appropriate for me to litigate until they do? Probably not, no. So, it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. You know? Thomas says the world has gone insane. In today's video, he says the world has gone insane. But what happened? What happened in 2020 and 2021 is the culmination of something that started, I believe, now looking at the bigger picture, from the 1960s when cultural Marxism began to infiltrate our universities and our general media thought. There was a latent thing that I'd observed before, and I noticed it from talking to normies about me going to the High Court. They think the High Court is like, you know, I don't know, the Kingdom of Yoda. I'm not even probably quoting that. They have this in awe attitude to the High Court. It was actually reflected very well in Ross O'Carroll Kelly, in which his dad goes in to represent himself, and Charles O'Carroll Kelly is saying, "Oh, Your Honour, Your Lordship, I verily plead if the judge interrupted him, Mr. O'Carroll Kelly, this is the High Court, it's not the Vatican." And, you know, I thought it was a great put down. And you do get these middle class normies, even more than you do in working class communities, who are absolutely in awe and reverence of the High Court. And this, you know, the High Court, though, actually, on a tangent, is where you will clip the wings of the Gardaí. That works. Don't bother going on with all this stuff in the district court. Let's say you're in a district court charge for Section 6 public order. What will be heard in court that day is the evidence of the Gardaí that might prove or disprove that you did it. They're not going, the judge isn't interested in anything else. They can't be listening or wasting time with constitutional arguments. You have to go to the High Court for that. But it does work. And they will never close down the High Court, because the High Court is where the very rich also get their stuff done. So you're joining an exclusive club in the High Court, but you have to be able to get it right. And, alas, a lot of the people who represent themselves don't. We need to get back to our republic, insofar as we need, as part of our recovery from what has gone on in 2020 and 21, to assess the extent to which our government abused us and how they trampled on our constitution. But also broader and more, if you like, occultic thing is the notion that government should have the right to do all these things fundamentally. And this is the normie Irish Times RTE thing. Oh, if in doubt, the government will sort it out. Well, I hope it keeps fine for you. I hope it keeps fine for you. If you think the government's going to sort it out, look how good a job they've done already. So who's your enemy? Thomas now, also, he says, stop calling politicians by their first name. He's so right. He's so right. And I've said it around my community now. That county councillor who's become a TD now and is now advocating for high-rise, high-density development in Howth Harbour, that's 15% of which is given to illegals. You had your warning. You had your warning. But without going into too many details, we can still say that nothing is cut in stone yet. The psychopaths would have you believe that everything is cut in stone and there's nothing you can do. That's their lie. That is their lie. Nothing is cut in stone. When Hitler marched across Europe in 1940s, how many people thought that that was a done deal? But it was all based on sand because Hitler was incompetent. The German army was already overstretched. They didn't have the money and, more importantly, the resources. They had done the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. It wasn't von Ribbentrop. That was a pretend name that crank made up for himself. They had done the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and one of the benefits to the Nazis of that was that they could avail of cheap resources from the Soviet Union. However, Stalin wasn't one to trust. I've been reading a book lately about that, about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, how they just decided Poland would cease to exist. That's why the Poles are so scared of communism. They're a welcome community here, the Poles, because they know what that's all about. They know what that's all about. We are complacent in this country. We are soft. We're spoilt. The Poles are not. They've seen all this. People say the Poles are stingy and all of that. No, the Poles are used to living in poverty and having to make ends meet, having to stretch food. You see Poles have a picnic on the beach behind our house, and like they bring literally everything with them. You know, and they dole out the food very sparingly and very frugally. Well, maybe we should take a leaf out of their book. We may have to soon. There was a little ball in RTE for a woman retiring, and they didn't wear a mask or socially distance. If you haven't woken up after that one, they're not going to. Doesn't matter to me. We'd all woken up before then. But having said that, if that wasn't the clarion call to you about what's going on here, then really you deserve nothing. You don't deserve civil liberties. They're talking now about vaccines, and that freak Varadkar is going on about vaccine passports, and one of the other ones, one of these ones, is now banging on about how the freedoms that'll go to the vaccinated. This is rubbish. This is gaslighting. Because it is long established in precedent in this state that you shall not be forced to undergo medical intervention against your will. So are you going to be punished for not getting a vaccine? Well, that's constructive duress, really, isn't it? So let's see how that one works out when they start sacking people who haven't got a vaccine, or when they say, well, we lift the travel restrictions. We lift the travel restrictions, but only for the vaccinated. So immediately there isn't equality before the law. You see, at the moment with the travel restrictions, at least they have an argument, and it's a fairly solid one. Well, it's applying to everybody equally, not, of course, to people in RTE. It doesn't apply to them. But leaving that aside, you know, the 5 kilometres, the masks, all of that applies to everybody equally. But if they're saying that it applies only to those who are unvaccinated, then you don't have equality before the law. They'll have a problem with that, and they know it. It's gaslighting. Don't mind them. Don't listen. What they're trying to do is get as many normies sucked into the vaccine thing by their consent. So, you know, pay no heed. Pay no heed to that one. There is a Marxist narrative, though, and I do believe that it infiltrated us from probably around the time Eisenhower ceased to be US president, somewhat similar or parallel to when Khrushchev took over as leader of the Soviet Union. And it is a Marxist adoration of government. So I saw a headline today, you know, the Gardaí have uncovered however million euros worth of fraud in relation to the PUP, the Pandemic Unemployment Payment thing. Now, this is a sacrilege in their minds because, you know, that's the state and they're giving out money to people for furlocking and cocooning. Cocooning. It really sounds freakish when it comes from a weirdo like Varadkar. Cocoon. And you committed sacrilege. You committed the worst offence of all by, you know, defrauding the state by taking that money. And that's the modern sacrilege now, isn't it? That's the modern sacrilege. Wouldn't it be easier if we could just untake the red pill and take off the black glasses and say, well, wouldn't it be nice if we all just laid back and trusted the government? But I've seen how that works. You know, I've seen how that works. A republic is very different from a democracy. Hong Kong was a republic under the British, in effect. Okay, it was a crown colony, but it had the rule of law. The most important feature of a republic is the rule of law, openness and accountability, and making sure that nobody has untrammeled power. So in a republic, everybody has power, but there are checks and balances. That's what they wanted in the United States. We are seeing that playing out in the United States now with the pandemic, because what they're not telling you on RTE is that the lockdowns vary radically in the United States from state to state. Texas, Florida. Interestingly, the red states, the Republican states, have little to no lockdown. Where all the blue states, the Democrat states, are just going bananas over it the way they are here in Ireland. This is, as Thomas says, a huge lesson to us. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You should by now know who your enemies are. And who is your enemy? Well, the politicians are your enemy. They want to harm you. They want to do you harm, yes. Are the Gardaí your enemy? No. No, I mean, they're overworked and underpaid as it is. Is the person in the shop your enemy? No, they're overworked and underpaid as it is. They don't want this hassle. The guards don't want hassle. That's not to suggest that they're particularly altruistic. It's just that the Gardaí don't need hassle. They want to get on with their jobs with the least amount of trouble as possible. So, they stop you in the car and you're driving somewhere. Where are you going? I'm doing an essential service. What are you doing? Buying food. Okay. I mean, I've been stopped by Gardaí in the supermarket saying, "Hiya, Christian, how are you getting on without wearing the mask? Anybody giving you any trouble?" They don't want this. They don't want this hassle. So don't be smart with the guards. Don't be giving them trouble. Unless they're giving you trouble. But they don't do that. That's not been my experience. Now, maybe I'm naive here, but unless the guards trouble me, I'm not going to trouble them. And I'll be respectful to them. And I accept the fact that they did not make these laws. They'll tell you that. We didn't make the laws, so we have to enforce them. Fair enough. Now, that's the Nuremberg thing, I was only doing what I was told. No, that's not, we haven't got to the stage of shoveling people into furnaces yet, so let's relax here. The politicians are your enemy. But, Simon Harris, Parp Blockman, Parpman Blockington. No, they are your enemy and they're very, very bad people. Varadkar's evil, Micheál Martin's evil, Simon Harris is evil, Stephen Donnelly is evil. But who is facilitating them? Who is enabling them? Who is opening the door to let the wolves in? Who is allowing the pig into the parlour to defecate in the corner? It's easy, it's the mainstream media. That's who your enemy is. That's who you have to fight. Go on your protests if you want. And as Thomas said, a lot of lonely people are going on these protests. A lot of lonely people are going on these protests, and that's valid. And they're getting out and they're meeting. I'm lucky. I go out every day to buy food from my parents, and I buy a newspaper from my dad, and I have a cup of coffee in Howth, and I meet local people. I meet the people in the shops. I'm chatting to people. I'm mixing. I sit in my front garden. I drink coffee. People walk up and down the road. Over the lockdown, I've met loads and loads of people who stop and chat. I'm very lucky. Also, the three of us live here. It's a big house. We're not on top of each other. We've got loads of space. But there are many, many, many people who this is hurting very badly. And then you turn on RTE and all they're doing is repeating the propaganda. And Virgin Media One, and you open the Irish Times and it's the same thing. They're not even asking questions about the significance of the RTE party in November. They should be hammering on that. And they're not asking about it. That's the job. The mainstream media, it's the mainstream media that demoralises and befuddles people. And I was talking to somebody about teaching, and I said, do you remember secondary teachers who would come in and they would get everybody wound up and be amused and befuddled, and you wouldn't know whether you were coming or going, and then they would set themselves up as the gatekeeper to get you the Great Leaving Cert. And there are psychopaths. There's an awful lot of psychopaths in teaching, and there's an awful lot of psychopaths in the mainstream media. But we are winning this, and the fact that John Williams is coming out with that ridiculous Truth Matters video, and the fact that they're now having a collective, they are absolutely going bananas over the Cork protest. Well done, people in Cork. Well done. And one Rocket Man, Pratt in Dublin, sets up for Rocket on Grafton Street. And of course all he's doing is playing into the hands of the enemy with that. And still it was a rocket. It wasn't exactly, a car bomb or anything. But, this showed, and it looked to me in the 7 interceding days from Dublin to Cork that lessons were learnt there. So we are winning this. We are winning this like we've never, like it's an incredible thing. And we're winning it in a way they're not in Britain and that they're not in America. We are winning this, and it's because it's a small country here, and all of us Alties out here, we all know each other, we follow each other, and we're all watching what's going on here. And there's a level of literacy as well. If you look at Dave Cullen, John Waters, I don't agree with everything they say. John Waters, for example, can sometimes make quite discursive remarks about the courts. Dave Cullen can be rather pessimistic. I don't agree with everything they say. Thomas Sheridan says that you shouldn't vote. I say you should. We don't all agree on everything. But together we are all contributing to this. And they know it out there in RTE. You know, when they take a break from snorting up the used cocaine on the backs of the toilets. People have been asking me one particular thing. They've been saying that they'd like me to do visuals with these videos. That is a lot easier said than done. Because, particularly since I got the filter over the mic, I'm able to get up very close both to the filter and to the mic, and it gives me great sound. But this mic is not connected to a camera. I have got a webcam here. It's good for webcam-y things, like if you look at the video I did with Angela, you know, it's really good. But I'm not satisfied that the visuals in that are good enough for me. So, you know, I will do a visual video soon enough. But it takes a lot of time to edit visuals. Whereas I record this, what you're listening to now, is recorded on Audacity, and it's recorded as an MP3. And then I save it as an MP3 file. I do a PowerPoint slide that gives you the visuals. They're put together in my video editing software. They're saved to a very small file size. Then they're uploaded to YouTube, and I can get them uploaded to YouTube in 2 minutes. So if I'm going to keep doing quick videos like this, and I watch Thomas's stuff or other people's stuff, and then I can make a commentary, it has to be this way. Otherwise it'll just take ages, you know. But I will, in the coming days or coming weeks, I will do a visual video just in response to people's requests for that.